So we'll talk about the overview. We'll talk about navigating Blackboard. We'll go over the major assignments overview. We'll have a discussion board overview. We'll talk about keys to success and good to know information. So here, we'll start off with the announcements page. So this should be the first thing you see whenever you log into Blackboard. Here within the announcements area, you'll see the lecture, all the different announcements. So here we get the lecture of opportunity. You want to keep your eyes out for anything that has to do with DTS or lodging. Make sure you're reading through everything. If you have any questions, please email the coordinator down below. And then, of course, all these other announcements here. This is a good guide right here in case you need a quick guide for where to find everything at. And it'll be down here at the bottom. So obviously the first thing we have here is the weekly lessons. So week 1 obviously is the first week. It goes all the way down to week 7. So within week 1, you'll see all the different checklists here. So obviously for this week, you got the PPMEs that are due. Other parts of the checklist will tell you where to go, so you have the whole class discussion here. You have the weekly lessons here. Under Start tab, you can see this here, review the rubric. Then at the color group level, there are also some other links that we'll go through really quick. And then other items here. As you keep scrolling down, you'll see your learning objectives, and of course, here's the course material for the first week. So obviously required, read, download, scan, view, all the requirements. And then you have also supplemental material that we recommend that you take a look at that will enhance the education part of this whole curriculum. So from here, again, this is where you find all your weekly readings that you would need for your discussion board questions. Under the major assignments tab, this is where you're going to upload your essays. So each essay, all the information is loaded here as far as the practical exercise. So it's very important that you look at the practical exercises. Each one is different for each assignment. There's a lot of people that sometimes think that if they're good on one paper, they're going to be good for all, and that's not necessarily true. So for the ethics essay, you want to make sure everything is always going to be in 3-part comms. You want to make sure it's an APA. It'll tell you where to find, if there's, depending on the assignment, where you can find information. You're going to be required to develop an outline. It'll tell you what the length is, and again, each paper is a little bit different. And some of these will tell you how many references you need. So for this particular one, you need a minimum of 2 references. Similarity, which we'll talk about here in a second, each one has a different similarity index threshold. So for this assignment, it should be no more than 30%. And this one will tell you what your main points are. So it's very important that when you write your paper, you're writing it to what the specifications are for that assignment. So again, make sure you're reading every PE, because every PE is different for each assignment. When you get to the capstone, which is a group assignment, it's got the full PE here. Go ahead and read through it, and then it's broken down into 3 different milestones. So make sure that you're capturing everything that you need for that assignment, because it's broken down into different small mini assignments for the whole presentation. So whenever you do get ready to submit your paper, you want to click on the link, and this will take you to SafeAssign, which is where you can submit your papers. So here, once you're ready to upload it, you can attach the file, you can write a little submission. Even though it does say that SafeAssign will accept all these different types of formats, we ask that you keep everything in Word so that we can go in there and we can actually give you back the feedback. And then it'll be submitted into the Global References database for similarity. So if you have any questions about this when you get to it, please feel free to ask your FA. They'll be happy to help you out and guide you in the right direction. When you do get feedback on your papers, a lot of FAs, what they like to do is they like to do it directly in Word. So if you're on your iPhone or your iPad and you try to open up to see what your feedback is, it's not going to show up in that type of view. You won't even see the changes on there. You'll actually have to open it up in Word in order to get the feedback from the FA. So from here, we'll also go down. The calendar is another link that's really good to look at. This one will tell you what is due. So if you notice, it'll say week 1, it'll tell you what week you're in. Tonight's the lecture of opportunity. You want to make sure that your mandatory 6 steps are all due at 0700 on Friday, and then your primary and secondary for week 1 only is going to be due at 0700 on Sunday. After that, all your primaries are going to be due. All your primaries are going to be due on Thursday at 07, and then all your secondaries are going to be due on Sunday. I apologize, I see little chats popping up, making sure I didn't lose everybody again. Okay, so also all major assignments are going to be due on Mondays. So your ethics essay is going to be due Monday at 07. Everything's at 07 in the morning, Eastern time. Your quiz here, due again on Monday, Eastern time. So if you're not sure and you're kind of lost about what is due and where everything's at, make sure you go to the calendar and it'll tell you where all the due dates are at. The whole class discussion here, if you haven't already gone in there and put in your introduction, this is where you can put your little bio, introduction to each other, and then there's also a water cooler in case you wanted to talk to other students from other color groups or want to collaborate on something before you come into in residence. That's an option that you can use if you want to get in there. Okay, here we go. So you have the water cooler here, and then you want to go to your different color groups and put in your introductions. So quiz and examinations, this is where you're going to find your quiz and your first quiz and your midterm. So when you go in there, when you get ready, the big key about this is it's timed at 90 minutes. So as soon as you start, you want to make sure that you have enough time to sit there and complete the test. So make sure that you're not going to be disrupted or you're not someplace that's going to interrupt you for whenever you complete these quizzes. Writing resources, I would get familiar with writing resources. If you have any questions about mastering the APA style, 3-part comms, anything that you need. We have some quick little videos that you can watch. We also have some handouts. This template in Word is formatted for you so that as far as for APA, so it's got the margin set up, it has a running head in there, it already has the title page that's recommended to the layout that we use here at the SEA. So if you're not familiar with APA or if you just want something that's already set up, just go ahead and download it. It's plug and play, type right over it, and it should be good to go. Then you got different handouts that you can look at. If you have any questions, most of the things that most students will want to reference is Chapter 6 and Chapter 7, which has to do with citing, in-text citation, and of course the reference page. And of course if you want to see the whole manual, you can download it here at the bottom. So going back to writing resources, of course the first week talks about 3-part comms, but if you're not sure or if you just want a quick reference guide, again, here's the APA APA template in Word that you can download, and then you've got an outline outline format, a handout on passive voice, and then of course the 3-part comms instruction here. Here's a troubleshooting guide in case you're just need a little bit more guidance on it, and of course the outline. And this is basically the diagram, really quick on 3-part comms. It's basically, if you think about it, it's more like the skeleton of the essay. So you want to it's basically your introduction, your transition sentences, and then your conclusion. So your introduction shouldn't really be any more than 3 or 4 sentences. The biggest thing is to make sure that your overview has the main points that you want to talk about, and you want to stick with those main points, because when you get to your transition sentence, you want to close one main point and introduce the next one. You don't need a transition sentence between your intro and your conclusion. And again, in your conclusion, your summaries should be the same thing as your overview. Your motivation statement and your remotivation statement should be the same, and then of course you have a closing statement here. So all that will be explained a little bit more in detail whenever you go through week 1's reading. And if you want to, also here's another video that kind of explains a little bit more on 3-part comms. You also have access to the Navy War College library, so whenever you're doing your research for your papers, it doesn't necessarily have to be news articles. You want to use peer-reviewed materials, so you should have access to the library. If you have any issues, just let us know. And then, of course, we have some additional online writing websites if you have any questions. Purdue OWL's on there, which makes it easy to do kind of a search function whenever you're looking for APA formatting. So I recommend checking it out whenever you get a chance. So the next part here is view your grades. So if you want to keep an eye on where your grades are at, as we finish grading, this will populate. So if you're curious, just go to view my grades. If you're curious about the staff, there's a function here you can go through and you can see everybody who's on staff right now. Dr. Bud, he's the one that you'll see a lot of emails from him about surveys, and then of course everybody else if you want to look through. Again, if you want to go back to announcements, you have this here. And then SEA Information Center. So here's this is basically the admin page here. If you have any questions for administration, here's the email address. Registrar, here's the email address. And then if you go to DTS info, you get any questions about DTS or travel, which is usually something that most students have. Here's the email address if you have any questions. Plus, he's got all this information here. Please read through it. I know DTS can be very challenging, so make sure you're reading through everything. And of course, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Then we get down to, and you won't see this. This is my view. You won't see this part of it. But when you go down to the bottom here, you're going to see your group, and I'm the FA for Orange Group. Go Orange. So here you're going to you'll have the file exchange. From here, what you can use this for is, depending on what your FA directs you to do, most FAs will have you put your outlines in the file exchange, or they may say email it to me. So just make sure you follow whatever direction your FA has given you. This is also a good place to put any information on your capstone if you want to, for collaboration, or anything that you would like to store on here that you want to keep for the in-residence portion. So this is your file exchange. Not a whole lot of, if your FA tasks you to go into the blog, then check out the blog. So the group discussion boards, so the discussion board area, this is where you're going to put your discussion board threads, and this is where you're going to also put your secondaries. And there'll also be a section there where you can put your essay topics. So every assignment that you have, you're going to be asked to put in a topic for approval to the FA. Here we go. So at the top, you'll have the six-step acknowledgement. You want to make sure you put your acknowledgement there before Friday, before 07 on Friday. Here, you're going to be able to put in your essay topics. If you open it up, you'll see the different topics laid out. So you have your ethics, your problem, and your heritage. Here's another place that you can collaborate as far as for the capstone project. Your FA will be giving you your topic. And then of course here you have week 1. This is where you're going to be putting your discussion board threads. So make sure you're going through there, going through and posting your discussion board threads in the appropriate discussion thread. Here we go. So with your journal, you want to make sure that it's where you upload your PPME in the group wiki. Please make sure you're putting in your information so that we can get a hold of each other as far as, you know, FA and students for collaboration. If you want to send an email, all you have to do is just go in, and then you can select people's names, whoever you want, shift it over, put a subject line, put in your message, and then go ahead and submit it. Now, in regards to discussion board overview, we do have Barry who is online here. Barry, would you like to add anything for discussion board?
So I'm Barry Crawford. I'm one of the adjunct faculty advisors. There'll be a number of faculty advisors that'll be participating in the Blackboard thread discussion. The first thing I would point you to is under your week 1 communication. You'll see under the Start Here tab, you'll see but the discussion board rubric, and those are the grading criteria of what we'll be grading. It's promptness, so it's your primary post that was turned in on Thursday at 07 Eastern, and then your secondary on Sunday at 07 Eastern. Those secondaries are just responses to other student posts, one answer for each of the questions. And promptness is part of it. The mechanics is the word count, grammar, spelling, APA control. So you're going to practice good writing habits in this. It's not that casual. It's not as formal as an essay per se, because you can engage in a dialogue and a discussion. But we want the mechanics to be appropriate and professional because you're practicing these good habits. And then there's the third element is content, and we want to see critical thinking. We don't want you to just give an answer that you think somebody wants to hear what we're looking for. We are happy if you were to go dig in, take an opposing view, show all sides, show some critical thinking, and push the conversation hard. Don't just say, hey, great post, Sally, and call it a day. We're looking for a lot more thought in that. I do want to just share a couple tips. I'll probably send this off to the class after this because I have a bulletized list of things, but a couple things we want to emphasize. When you post in the thread, when you're doing a secondary, meaning it's a response to someone else's primary post, we want you to use the quote button. There's a quote button there, and what that does is it copies the discussion that you're responding to, so the faculty advisors can actually see the context of your answer. Otherwise, our view of this, it's very difficult for us to see what you're responding to. So please use the quote button when you're doing secondary responses. We do like to see API guidelines followed, good writing habits, punctuation, spelling, things like that, but we're not looking for 3-part comms in the Blackboard thread. So we don't want you to waste time with an introduction and a summary because you're going to take up all your space. So no 3-part comms in the thread. 200 to 250 words. Really stick to that. What we're trying to do is the right amount of content to be concise. Don't ramble on. Be persuasive, but don't be too short and don't be too wordy. Sentence structure we'll be looking at. I'll just send you a tip later, but it's good sentence structure that you'll see in the writing. controls, good paragraph structure. We suggest that you answer the question right away. You know, there's a topic sentence of your response. Answer the question, and then all of your supporting content, maybe some references, it'll support your answer, and people kind of are following along with what your answer was. Otherwise, putting your answer somewhere buried in is kind of hard to follow. So it will hit you on stuff like that, or at least give you some feedback on an effective way to communicate, put your answer up front. QC your post before submitting. The Blackboard there's a slight delay, so when you're typing in right into the Blackboard, you're going to find that you're going to make more mistakes than you would if you were in Microsoft Word. So what we suggest is you type your answer in Microsoft Word, do a spell check on it, make sure it's active voice, spelling is good, punctuation is good, and then copy and paste that into the Blackboard thread. And those are just some very basic tips, but we will be evaluating your professionalism in that. The last thing I'll say is if you're going to put citations in there, or you're going to credit some source, the Blackboard posts, you're not graded necessarily on those, but if you're going to put them in and they're all wrong, wrongly formatted, we will give you that feedback on that. So don't be surprised. Even though it's not in the rubric, if you're going to put them in there, you'll get some feedback for it. I think that's all I got for now, Mickey.
Thanks, Barry. We went over announcements, assignments, schedules, quizzes and exams, resources, and we talked about the grades. We went over the essays, where to find the essays, and how to upload the essays. We talked a little bit about the capstone project. You'll be getting your topic from your FA. Barry discussed the discussion board overview with the basics, the word counts, and citing your sources. So from here, the keys to success. We ask that you be open to the learning experience, focus on what it is and not what it isn't. This is one of the few times where this is more educational than it is training. So take in all the information that you have, put it in your toolbox, and hopefully some of it you'll be able to use in your next assignment. Again, please make sure you read and follow the practical exercises. A lot of the things that I see whenever I sit ARBs is that the student did not read the right practical exercise for the assignment. So make sure that you're following the practical exercise as well as attention to detail. Everything is laid out in those PEs as far as, everything says make sure everything's in APA, make sure everything's in three-part comms. Three-part comms is not going to go away after you're done with your essays. You're going to be doing your speeches in that format as well. So if you have any questions, if you're still kind of wrestling with it, please don't hesitate to ask any questions. So deadlines, the easiest way to fail an assignment is not to submit it on time. If there are issues that prevent you from submitting your assignment on time, please make sure you're having that conversation with your FA beforehand. We understand, we're all working adults trying to do this in between your work schedules. So we understand that things come up, but the conversation should be done between yourself and the FA if you're finding that your time is very constrained. Communicate early and often. Also use your MES. By now, there's probably many graduates within your area, and many of them who would be willing to be mentors. All you have to do is just ask. Prior graduates are probably the best people to ask, especially people that have just gone through it. They'll help you out with their experiences. If they're willing to look at your paper, they're willing to give you feedback. Please make sure you use your MES. You can use each other within, students. If you know someone who is a really good writer, you can always ask them, hey, please take a look at my paper. Every FA will give you feedback on an outline, which is basically your intro, transition sentences, and your conclusion. They will ask you to submit that for feedback. If they'll offer it to you, you just basically have to give them enough time to give you the feedback so that you can make the changes on your paper. Definitely reach out to your FA, and if you can, definitely find an academic mentor who can help you out with these assignments. So good to know information. We have student handbook. Need to read through it. There's going to be some information there about the group t-shirts. So when you come in residence, groups are allowed to purchase PT shirts that they can use for the Buyer's Cup and for group PT. Go through the student handbook, there's a little bit more information on that. There's also some information on the legacy gifts, not mandatory, but if the class is willing to do a legacy gift, sometimes it's easy to start coordinating now or as soon as you get into in residence. And then of course you'll be receiving a lot of emails, or a few emails on surveys, and feedback is something that we're always looking for. A lot of things that have changed over the last year and a half have come from student feedback, so if you see something that might be a little bit better that you've seen someplace else, we'll definitely take a look at it, and if it's something that's within our control that we can change, we'll probably change it within a class or two, especially if it makes sense. So take a look at the handbook and make sure you're filling out your surveys. We would greatly appreciate it. So for preparing for in-residence, make sure you get your reservations in early. You've already seen the announcement. It's been sent out to you as far as making sure you're making your lodging arrangements. For your travel planning tips, get in there, start talking to your POC with DTS. There will be another announcement as far as DTS and line of accounting. Any questions, make sure you contact the DTS coordinator over here at the SEA, and he'll be able to help you out. So the DTS coordinator asked me to let you know on the first week you'll receive the lodging information, which is already in the announcements. And then next week you should be seeing another announcement regarding the SEA LOA. Just remember to read the entire posting and read the DTS instructions. It's located in that SEA resources button. And then give them a call if you have any questions. So the whole goal obviously is that you don't get any kickbacks, so you're not going back and forth trying to get it approved. We do not pay for rental cars. It's up to your command if they would like to pay for your rental car, so that's something that you may want to start talking to them about it now, but that's not something that we provide here at the SEA. So in summary, we went over Blackboard and showed you around a little bit. We talked about the major assignments overview. We did the discussion board overview. We talked about keys to success and some good to know information.